There he is, my partner in crime, the one and only Danny Baconator Bacon. How you doing, brother?
I am doing fantastic. I'm still living on cloud nine. We had such a great event. Thanks to everybody who showed up. I mean, I had to wear my jersey tonight. Pretty well, most of our sponsors are on this jersey, including our biggest sponsor that we're watching us on with CFN. So thank you very much, Scottie. We really appreciate it a lot, of course.
Well, I'll tell you, my job has been made very easy with all the handiwork that Christelle's been doing behind the scenes.
Yes.
Some of those promo pics and logos and just it's just spectacular. Some of the stuff that she's pumping out. So, if Christelle, you're watching, thank you so much. You've made my job so much easier. So, thank you.
Absolutely.
And we still have lots of posting to go. There's still a story left to be told about this year's event. And Dan, you know what, Dan, we haven't really had too much time to really talk about it, but with everything that happened that weekend, what was your biggest takeaway? What was the best part of that weekend for you?
For me, there's a lot of major highlights for that. One of the things was, like, I know I said that on our last night when we were all here at the house, was it came out exactly how I envisioned it, which really shocked me because you don't expect that. We had a small team that came together at the end with so many hurdles. Like we were talking earlier, like a week before the event, we had like things that we really wanted. We had no food. We were having issues with some of our other items. Sponsorships really helped us out. They came on board. They did a great job. Everybody involved. Well, one of the interesting stats that I just literally noticed, because I seen this. This is our prize list. This is what we handed out that night. So I counted everything on here. This does not include the pre-fishing event. On this list, there's 32 prizes we handed out for 32 teams. So that's not including the pre-fishing event. So it was pretty phenomenal. The sponsorship we had, it produced all this here stuff. And we have, there's so many to thank already. We have, last year at this time, we had an idea with maybe 2 sponsors that jumped on board, which I do want to give a good shout out to the Trading Post Sault Ste. Marie and Garnet's Rentals for being the very first to jump on board as a sponsorship. And obviously they've jumped on board again this year, but this year we've got 5 or 6 already signed up. So we're super excited for next year.
Absolutely. And as Dan has just mentioned, if it wasn't for these folks, we wouldn't have managed to get anywhere close to what we were hoping to achieve. And because of the generosity and, of course, the combined effort of these wonderful folks, we did. And we do have something special tonight to talk about. Of course, not only are we going to be talking about the Expo and the Made in Canada and how you as vendors can save some money just by watching tonight with some of the advice that Brad's going to give. But if I'm not mistaken, Dan, we can announce next year's event already?
Absolutely, we can. So we have confirmation I pushed out. So September 18th, 19th, 2026 will be the next North Channel Walleye Open event. We're very excited. The town, we've got a few little more hurdles to go through, but it's pretty much set in stone. And I'm everybody who's watching, who's calling and messaging about next year's event. I appreciate that. It's a very good compliment to get that you guys want to come back.
Amen. It's the ultimate compliment.
Yeah.
When we do things, whether it's the retreat, the fish off, or meet and greets, that's what we're aiming to hear, is that folks want to come back. And so far, knock on wood, we heard that at Horwood. We heard that again this past weekend at McIntosh. So the future looks very bright, but it wouldn't if it wasn't for the buy-in from folks that really don't know much about what it is that we do here at CFN, what the NCWO represents in terms of the town of Spanish, that fishery, folks like you that live in the town. That's the amazing part for me. So I will have to say the biggest takeaway for me from that weekend up in Spanish was just the celebration of your town folk on the event, and of course the prosperity that it brought. As I said, Gamble's convenience store was the highlight.
Nobody was happier than Vicky, eh?
Honestly, like that was, thank you, Vicky, because that made our weekend. It really did.
And tip of the hat here. I mean, I've known Vicky for quite some time, and obviously she's here, but she went above and beyond, and Christelle and Chantel can attest to that, just how she treated them, and just the little things that, and that's kind of where I pride myself in this community. Those that care and want to put a lot of effort to the community, they do the behind the scenes things that may not matter to a lot of people, but it matters to the people that are there. So my hat's off to them. Good on them. They left a great impression and made my job easier.
Your parents, Nick's parents, Mary Lisa, your ex-wife, your daughter, your son, the list goes on and on. And as I said, I mean, it's one thing to thank a person, but I mean, I can't stop thinking about the efforts that they put forth, especially in the 11th hour when we found out that food became an issue. That was something that both of us were dedicated to making sure that we were different when it comes to some of the other tournaments, that we were going to provide food for our anglers. And Mary Lisa took the bull by the horn, as well as a host of other incredible characters. And again, I'm speechless. I still can't stop thinking about the combined effort that went on that weekend. It was incredible.
I remember, it's all over the phones, pounding, just going nuts on the phone, trying to get a hold of everybody, talking to everybody else. And, JR's Pizza stepped up in a big way and helped us out a lot. And my hat's off to Frowns and the girls over at the Royal Canadian Legion, our local branch. They really helped seal the deal, and they did a great job for that. Amen. And I mean, we've always talked about them being involved. We weren't quite sure how we were going to make this all happen because we didn't know. We were learning as we went. Now we actually seen the numbers. We've seen where we're at. We hope to have a better handle pushing for 2026 with all of our holes, because we weren't trying to do just a tournament. We were trying to build a culture and a unique presence, which I think we've kind of started. We think we did the right thing. We got it off the ground the right way. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do in 2026 with the NCAA, with the Town of Spanish, and as well with the Made in Canada Tackle Show. And I haven't heard negativity, which is knock on wood. It's easier for people to cast stones than it is to cast compliments, and we've been getting a lot of compliments. So I can't thank everybody enough, because it wouldn't have happened if people wouldn't have jumped on board and done what they did. And it wasn't just our community. Neighboring communities got involved as well.
Amen. One thing that we do have to get better at, and we're going to talk to Brad about how we're going to achieve that. But the Made in Canada Expo, as I said, from what Brad and I are used to, it was a bit of a dud when it came to the attendance. We found out, again, we can talk about some of the negative aspects of it, and as much as we thought we did a lot of advertising, perhaps it wasn't the kind of advertising that can be dedicated to promoting an expo. So, I know Brad and I have talked about it at great length, and we're going to talk to him tonight. So, in fact, I would say probably no better time to bring him in than right now. Brad, as always, a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. You and I always seem to come up with some great ideas and concepts. The Made in Canada Tackle Show and Marketplace is definitely one of those. We had another think tank brainstorming weekend up at Camp McIntosh. We've got a few other things that we're going to move forward on, but based on the weekend, Brad, up at Spanish, I know, you covered your costs with some of the stuff that you had sold. Some of our other vendors did not. But going forward next year, because of all of our shows, that was the only one that I would have to say that we didn't do well at, and we definitely have to do better next year.
We've always had good success with promoting on Facebook, some other social medias and stuff like that. What we found out was that doesn't work as well in that area. We did get a post out late on Friday night, and we did end up with some people in on Saturday that saw it. So we do know that it does work to an extent up there. But we're looking at other promotional options for all our shows right now. And up there, whether it be we get one of the billboards on the side of the highway, I know Danny has mentioned radio advertising, stuff like that. We're just going to have to look at other options.
Yeah, like we were talking about earlier too. It's kind of like, it's not shocking that happened. We kind of had an expectation that it may happen, but we we also kind of had to be there to. I know Scottie had these conversations at length, and it was from us. Like we have to be there, even if we predict a loss, just to kind of this is what we're talking about, and we've done that. I think that was a great move on your part, and I think that was a learning curve that we can build off of. We've already talked quickly. We're like, yeah, we should have done this. We should have done this. We should have done that. Those are those learning curves that we are going to correct. We also had our own, obviously, with the same thing with the advertising. Even though I find when it comes to these kind of events up here, word of mouth is your biggest compliment, and we established that. So I think that'll help spread a lot more to what's going to happen next year. But we can focus a lot more on other aspects as well, because one of the things that was really shocking to me, even though I went up to that community, it was Elliott Lake. There's 11,000 people who live up there. They're 30 miles away. They're 30 minutes away. And we never had one team from there. And I do know that we had our signs up there. We had our posters up there. So we did have more traditional sign. And I don't necessarily think it was a failure on kind of getting it out to those people. It was just more or less not knowing what they were going to expect.
Yep.
Now that we've delivered, they're hearing what came out of it. And that's that trickle effect that we're getting already, saying like, oh, we heard it was a great event. Congratulations. We're looking forward to next year, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of my mind's going with it. I'm trying to ride this wave of positivity as much as I possibly can before I get down dirt and deep into the gutters of it all again.
And I, as a vendor, and all our other vendors that went up there, we went up there to support the event. We knew that it was risky, that there might not be, there might not be the crowds. Like it was a first time. But as I understand it, of the vendors that were there, most of them will be coming back next year.
That's fantastic to hear. That's very good to hear.
So,
like a beautiful venue for that as well. Like, when you think about it. Like really the only
I love the venue. It was a very nice venue. I will give you that for sure.
And Sean, to your point, there is a beer tent. It's not quite a tent. It's inside, but there is lots of that kind of stuff and other sustenance available to you. So it looks like we got Sean coming, so that's a good thing. Brad, looking back on the year that was, when it comes from the Made in Canada Tackle Shop, we'll just take a quick trip, if you will, at some of our venues, so we can quickly go over and perhaps maybe announce when next year's events are going to be in these same locations. And of course, everything started off in Chatham. And up front, I know you're probably going to say the same thing. I can't thank the Parker family and the entire Handlebars team for all of their work in promoting this show. And I know going forward for this coming season, they're going to work even harder. But Chatham was a great success. Again, we weren't sure what the crowds were going to be like, but everything worked out.
So yeah, the Chatham show for us this year, or last year, was our first show in that vicinity, in that venue. The venue was fantastic. We had a great turnout for our first year. Our vendors all did relatively well, and I think we're going to grow with that venue. This year we've booked again. We're booked for just excuse me here, I got it up on my other screen. February 14th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. So that's actually Family Day weekend, the Saturday of Family Day weekend. With the spring fishing show taking our normal date for that event. We were forced to move, and we decided to take their traditional event or date for the event. So little different this year. We're going to do a musky area, just to try and capitalize on the fact that we really are down in a musky mecca down there.
Amen.
Lots of anglers, and we'll work on getting the vendors in, and we'll fill a musky area.
Amen. So that's Chatham. Of course, that's Family Day weekend. So looking forward to seeing folks down there. And then next up was, of course, something that we weren't really expecting as soon as it happened, and the fact that Scott Sprague reached out to us from the Ottawa show, and I have up last year's promo, but this year you have already spoken to Scott, and it sounds like they're really on board again for this idea and this concept next year.
Yeah, they're anxious to have us back, to the point of where we are considering it one of our shows this year. Obviously, when later on in the show we'll talk about some of the other irons we have in the fire, but we are at this point considering the Ottawa show a go. We have to sit down with Scott, work out the details, but it was a fantastic show for something we pulled together last minute.
Yeah.
We had the benefit there that we didn't really have to get the people out. That show draws about 20,000 participants right off the bat. We just had to get the vendors on board.
Yeah, and we hope the pricing is the same for this year as indicated here. Again, this is a promo from last year, so folks, it's a different date, same weekend, just the dates are different. And of course, this pricing, we just have to make sure that we confirm this with Scott that is the pricing that is available for our vendors. But yeah, all in all, very well. And I'll tell you, Dan, the most beautiful part of this show, as quickly as it was that Brad and I put it together, the buy-in and support from the vendors who came. Brad, I was blown away at how many great people were a part of this show. You, I'm sure, feel the exact same.
Well, and that's one of the things I want to mention, Scottie, about this show is one of the things that was truly amazing and shows really the reason we're trying to do this was we had about 9-10 Made in Canada vendors that came. Only 3 of them were on our regular vendor list. Everybody else was brand new.
Mm-hmm.
But within 15-20 minutes of getting set up and talking to each other.
Oh, we lost Brad there for a second.
I thought it was me for a second. I'm looking for
no, we lost you there for a sec, Brad.
I lost you both. I was just going to say that it really all the vendors gelled together and showed us what it's all about.
Amen.
So something else to see.
So that is the Ottawa show, and we're looking forward to that again this year. And then after that, I believe it was the Kitchener show that was next. And Bingaman's is an incredible location. It gave our vendors sort of the taste of what I would say a glitz and glamour big show feels like, carpet under your feet, nice backdrops. Of course, you have all the tube and drape, but it's a really nice venue, tons of parking. And again, a pleasant surprise based on what we saw as the turnout, as well as the amount of money that was spent that weekend. Brad, what else did you want to describe as the Kitchener show? There's so many words you can use.
Again, was a first-time show for us. We had never done one in Kitchener before. It was kind of a nice surprise for me that we were able to run in the Bingaman's venue. I remember going to Bingaman's with my father when I was, knee-high to a grasshopper, to go to a fishing show that hasn't been there in probably 22, 23 years. So to bring that back to Kitchener, of all places, and to do it at Bingaman's was a real thrill for me. And the turnout was fantastic. And, I mean, our vendors all did really, really well. So that's a show that I'm sure we're going to grow into very quickly. And for that show, we have it booked for March 7th, Saturday, March 7th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. This year we are in the ballroom, which is at the opposite end of the building, but it's a little nicer layout for us. It's more of a square room than the longer rectangle room, which allows us to keep everybody a little bit more in the space.
Mm-hmm.
Looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a great show again.
Yeah, this one definitely was. It left a twinkle in your eye based on just how it was received, how many people came, and how well our vendors did. And again, we, as much as we want to have shows and events everywhere, sometimes it's just not going to work. And the one thing that we needed to do, Dan, was to gain the trust of our vendors to make sure that we weren't going to put them in a situation like, per se, Spanish could have been. And we were very open and honest and said, we don't know what to expect, this, that, and everything else. But we were supposed to have a Niagara show last year. And just based on the number of vendors that we had and everything that was going on in the community, in the industry, and in the world, it didn't make sense to run this show. And unlike, maybe in the past, others would still venture forward and try and put on, the show must go on kind of thing. Brad and I decided that this was not going to be advantageous for the vendors, and we decided to pull the plug on this. But we do have an announcement about a Niagara show in 2026.
Yeah, so I think our biggest problem with this show, Scottie, was we were late in the year.
Yeah.
And the reason we were late in the year is that the venue that we had chosen does spring storage, and that was the first weekend that it was available to us. So we spent some time this year. We looked up a new venue down that way. So we have our Niagara show this year is going to be at the Caledonia Fairgrounds on January 7th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's a great venue, really, really nice, bright, clean. It's got a bit of an older, modern feel to it, but really looking forward to this venue. I think it's going to be fantastic.
100%. And some of the other upcoming shows that we can talk about because we're in discussion. We haven't gotten into great detail in regards to that discussion, but lo and behold, the Toronto Sportsman Show has reached out to us and has had an interest in having an aspect of the Made in Canada at their show. So we're really excited about that, and we're waiting to see what that turns into. And as I said, I can't think of anything else, Brad, any other show possibilities, unless you have some that you wanted to share.
Nothing really formal.
Right.
We have we've had a couple other shows that have expressed mild interest, but nothing to the level of the Sportsman Show. And then we can't forget the one that we do in Spanish in September.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Amen.
So
we're
all
excited
these
to have
shows
you.
we're looking forward to growing.
Yeah. I would have to say one show that really came together that I would have to say Brad and I worked very hard to put together because of sort of some of the hurdles that we were thrown and had to deal with. The event itself was an absolute hit, and I know the CISA event is going to be something that's going to be happening again next year. But the fact that we were able to be a part of that in a small capacity was a big thrill for us. But the fact that it went so well, and again, we were a little concerned at the very beginning. We weren't getting the foot traffic that we had hoped for. And then all of a sudden, it was lights on the Saturday, and I would have to say that all of our vendors did really, really well. And there might be a chance that we might be back at that venue again next year. We'll have to wait and see from the organizers if, in fact, that is still a goal. But again, there's all these possibilities, all these opportunities, and for the sake of our vendors, we will do everything we can to make sure that it's a prosperous year for you again in 2026. The California show is...
I know, I caught that too. It's exciting to hear that.
What's the California show?
You sure you want to ask him?
I'm not sure. And if James is going to California, yikes. Oh, Caledonia.
Yes, the Caledonia show is on January 17th.
There you go. And Quinn is asking a question, Dan. What are the boat numbers for walleye tournaments up there? I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah, so it's more specifically, I guess you're referring to like all the tournaments we had up here with the Northern Ontario Walleye Trail, which are still around. But we used to maintain, I would say, anything from 80 to 100 boats. This year, every tournament seen dwindling numbers. In fact, with Spanish being their first one at 32 was actually more than some of the more established events. I'm not sure really what the reason for that. I boiled it down just not cost of the event, but the usual, the hotels, the gas, the expenses that you have to put in to get to these events. I think it just kind of shied people away. But normally these events would always have about at least 80 to 100 boats.
It's really something to see. And of course, Long Lock was a great example of what happens when a tournament that big comes to town, and the buy-in from the town, the number of people that come in from town to watch, all the weigh-ins, the amount of sponsorship that went on up in Long Lock. Alain and his team did a fantastic job up there. And, that is a great representation of how powerful this whole walleye tournament trail is in the north. When you see Long Lock, and I've seen Matagami, I've seen Hearst, I've seen the Sioux, I've seen a whole host of them. But that up in Long Lock was really something special, and I'm hoping that we can at least get back there again very, very soon.
Yeah, and when you look at Spanish, we didn't reinvent the wheel here. We just took what we felt was really great that the tournaments all started with, or all did. Some may have drifted away from that tendency for whatever reasons, politics and all that kind of stuff. So we just said we want to get back to, I miss Sagamok. Sagamok was our local tournament, and that event left. And so it's been gone, I think, for about 4 years now. So we wanted to bring back that same kind of thinking. And that's where, it was about, treating the anglers with a lot more than just there's a lake and here's a prize. So we really worked hard at that. And now, me and Scottie, we both kind of narrowed in on the same idea very quickly without having to go through it. And, brainstorming like we are now, all of a sudden he's like, well, what about the Made in Canada show? So we could see how this could grow, and all we can do is provide or present those opportunities. People will let us know whether they want it or not.
Yeah. I'll leave that one alone.
Yeah.
I will say this, Brad, in regards to what you have envisioned with the Made in Canada Tackle Show and Marketplace, there is a growing need, if you will, for vendors to come together and maintain the growth of the Canadian tackle industry. And again, Sean said it, I saw his comments, like there is some incredible tackle being made here in Canada. And unfortunately, as great as some of this tackle is, and how our craftsmen and women are focused on their craft, some of the other intangibles aren't as easy to navigate through. And one thing that you have been adamant about is sharing your resources, sharing your knowledge to better the industry as a whole. And I would say probably one of the biggest things that the Made in Canada is trying to do is build the Canadian Tackle Guild, which is going to be a resource beyond all resources that we've ever seen before, where vendors are going to be able to support with tackle, with resources, with product, and of course, the biggest cost, which is shipping. And I will let you take it from there, because this is something that you offer on a regular to anybody who's willing to listen, how to save money on shipping. So if you're a Canadian tackle producer and you're still going through
the whole idea of the Tackle Guild.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So the whole idea of the Tackle Guild, and I mean, it's kind of unofficial right now. We're hoping to start to formalize it up this winter and actually get a membership, get some stuff. But the whole idea is for lack of a better description, it's a tackle maker support group. It's something when you're having problems. It could be something as simple as somebody asking a question of where can I get this packaging, or advice on how to do something that they maybe don't normally do, or whatever, right? But I mean, obviously this year our biggest struggle has been shipping, especially for anybody that ships overseas or into the US. and it's been a roller coaster of now we can, now we can't, now we can, now we can't, and trying to understand exactly what's going on and what's tariffed and what's not, and that, and I do what I can to share out as much information as I can with the vendors, so that hopefully I can help out one or two people, and I know I have. I've had several people that have reached out to me, because the shipping company that I've been using for quite some time now, the company called Stallion Express, and every vendor that's picked it up based on my say so has called me within a couple months and thanked me, because it's cut their costs down. It's very simple. It's straightforward. The downside of it is it's not well established in Ontario yet. Certainly, if you're in a major metropolitan area, it's fairly easy to use. It's very convenient to me, because I have a drop-off location about 10 minutes from the house. But it's literally cut my shipping expenses in a third of what they used to be.
Like that's
I can
big.
ship.
That's big.
I can ship cheaper through them with Canada Post than I can by shipping with Canada Post. And it also gives me additional options. In fact, they put a note out a couple days ago with the Canada Post strike that's now on, that they're still able to cover 96% of Canadian postal codes with shipping options, even with Canada Post not functioning. So although it's an inconvenience, it's never really shut me down. So we're excuse me, I'm actually working with Firebrand Custom Baits right now. We're working on getting he's going to try out a bit, and he's going to try using a pickup service that they offer through UPS. And we're going to actually try and find out what it will cost for somebody that's not near a drop-off depot like me, to use their services, because I think it's a great option for everybody.
So are you good, Brad, if you become the contact, the source of contact for shipping? So folks, if you haven't heard, it's called Stallion. Is it Stallion Express? Express.
Yeah.
I want to say it's been around for maybe a year, two, maybe. Stallion?
I'm going to say it's probably been around for about 3
years. Okay.
It's just really starting to catch on now. And I mean, every month they're adding a couple drop-off locations or full-blown branches or whatever. But one of their big features is they do first step delivery. So when I drop it off to them, if it's going down into the States, they actually get it across the border. And once it's across the border, they put it in the hands of the courier down in the US. So it gave me access to USPS, which has made a huge difference in my shipping costs. Like everybody knows, I ship downrigger weights. If I can keep the package under $20, I can ship it pretty much anywhere in the US for under $15 Canadian. With the cancellation of the de minimis clause, which has been a huge thing for us, that's what allowed us to ship into the US any package less than $800 without any brokerage or tariffs or customs fees. With the cancellation of that, most of our packages in the Canadian tackle industry will still ship duty free because they're made in Canada, but they have to go through brokerage. Well, anybody that's ever experienced brokerage through one of the major carriers know that can run anywhere from $25 to $75. Stallion Express is brokering them across the border for $1.49. So it's to be honest with you, I don't know how they make money, but that's not my problem.
Does that work both ways?
Yes, they actually have an outfit called Shipsy, which is their parent or their sister company, and it'll give you access to a U.S. address. I use them quite often because some of my suppliers won't ship to Canada. They'll only ship to a U.S. address. So I can have it shipped to my Shipsy address, which is in New York, and then they will do it the other way, where they bring it across the border and I pick it up at my local depot here, or I can have it shipped directly to the house for an additional cost.
So if you are a vendor, if you're someone like Richard who has to ship hoodies, garments, or anything for that matter, and you've been using traditional means with Purelator, UPS, FedEx, or even Canada Post, we're at a crossroads right now where it's going to be really interesting to see what happens going forward with Canada Post and door-to-door shipping. I have a feeling that we've probably seen it for the last, and we do desperately need to all make changes in how we ship stuff. And again, if you're producing stuff like Brad is, I'm going to make you the point of contact, Brad. If anybody wants to learn more about Stallion Express, make sure you reach out to Brad.
You don't have to be a member of the guild or anything like that. I will help anybody that wants a little bit of help. And I'm not an expert, but I can tell you what I know, and I can help you get in touch with somebody that can answer your questions.
Quinn's asking, do they have dogs that sniff the packages?
Just your packages.
Just your packages. That's awesome. So that's shipping. So that's a big component for everybody in the Made in Canada tackle show marketplace, and just as a Canadian vendor. That is a huge, huge expense. Then there's a bunch of others that you have managed to source as well that have brought your costs down, Brad, that I'm sure at this point, Danny and I are just going to sit back and enjoy your time.
Well, one of the things we're trying to get to do more as a group is we're trying to do more volume buying. Like I'm not the only vendor out there that uses hooks. I know that. So we're trying to set up to be able to buy hooks in bulk as a group, stuff like that. I mean, our pipe dream is to eventually to maybe be able to even offer something like group benefit program or something like that for independent tackle manufacturers. But the whole idea is to make it more affordable and easier for somebody to become a full-time tackle manufacturer, because it's a big step. It's tough to actually sit down and say, I'm going to quit my good, steady weekly paycheck and make fishing tackle.
Exactly.
So, but one of the big things is that's where the Made in Canada tackle shows come in, is to try and provide an affordable venue for people to come and sell their tackle. It's pretty tough for somebody that's just starting out to get out and take on a spot in one of the big shows.
Amen. And I think, Brad, we could talk to that, and I'm sure Danny, you can chime in as well. There's an apprehension, I'm sure at some folks, as good as they are and as confident as they may be in producing the kind of tackle that they do, this can be a little overwhelming. You are a small fish in a big world, and it can be, a little apprehensive to navigate through all this. And it's just awesome, because what we are building is not just a show platform, but a resource base that will help anybody who's willing to use it.
Well, and I mean, the main goal is to get more Canadian tackle into our Canadian tackle stores. When I was a kid, Canadian tackle we were a juggernaut in the tackle industry. You look at some of the big names that were invented here. They've now moved off seas or down into the US. It's huge. I'd like to bring it back to where Canadian stores can only have, get 75% of their stuff to be Canadian tackle. Mm-hmm. When I've done a couple of local fishing groups, I've gone and done a little bit of a talk about my stuff, about the Made in Canada aspect of it. And I tell them, you could sit down and open your tackle box, and you go through your tackle box. Everything that's in that tackle box, you could find a Canadian supplier that makes it, or something to replace it.
Awesome. And you've also gone above and beyond when it comes to sourcing lead for certain tackle producers that require lead to produce some of their wonder stuff. are you able to help out any further than you already are with that, Brad?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. We currently for ourselves source about 75,000 pounds a year. So another 4,000 or 5,000 pounds a year for other tackle manufacturers isn't out of the question.
And it's not easy finding lead. Like, surprisingly enough, it's not easy to find the kind of lead that you need and require to produce some of the stuff that you do on a regular basis. And I know you are adamant.
A lot of the scrap yards won't sell to the public anymore.
Right.
And I mean, our biggest sources of lead in the past of the scrap has been electrical cabling. You know, they used to use it in the gutters of like all the flashing on roofs used to be lead. A lot of the stuff I get now comes out of X-ray, like X-ray rooms at hospitals, stuff like that. But a lot of that stuff's drying up. The plumbers aren't pulling out old lead pipes anymore. They're pretty well done. They're not digging up the old water pipes that had the nice lead gaskets in them. It's all done. The railway isn't pulling out, you know, lead sheath cable, and it's getting harder to find. And I don't advise anybody to try and get into recycling batteries.
Amen.
It's funny that, you know, I'm a licensed electrician. I also hold a class 1 in water treatment, and hearing Brad going on about how glorious it is to have lead and cable and lead and water lines is not good on my end, but I understand.
No, it's the bane of the industry, but for the guys that need it.
You know, but another contact for that is, you know, Bell Canada. They have a lot of lead that they remove from a lot of their systems. But my question is, when are you going to start doing tungsten downrigger balls? They're physically smaller, right?
When do you guys want to start paying $800 or $900 a downrigger ball?
Amen.
As soon as you guys want to start paying that kind of money for downrigger balls, I'll get them made out of tungsten. We looked into it. Actually, one of the things that we've looked into, and we've talked to a foundry, and it's kind of an ongoing thing, is we're actually looking at getting a cast stainless steel ball done. Because I do believe that eventually we're going to hit a lead ban in Ontario, and when we do, we got to have something ready to go.
Amen.
Do you see like brass coming back as a substitute for some of that kind of stuff? Or is brass?
Yeah, brass is a little harder to work with than lead, obviously, and it's got a little higher melting temperatures and stuff like that. But it's one of the better options that I see out there.
It was way back in the way with the cabin cruisers. It was the prop choice, obviously, for many reasons, right? So I'm sure there's still a lot of that old stuff out there.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at even copper as an option. Copper's got not bad weight qualities compared to other metals.
Mm-hmm.
But
copper prices going up
drastically increase.
Yeah. Amen. They've gone up with every other. Richard is asking about balancing weights for your tires. Is that considered a good lead-based product?
The steel
depends who you talk to. I won't touch them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very, very few of them are lead anymore. Some of them have a lead content, but usually the sticky ones that you peel and stick, they're usually not bad for lead, but most of them have zinc or tin in them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell because a 3 ounce tire weight, 20 years ago was this big. Now they're this big, right? And that's because they either have little or no lead in them.
Yeah. So
I won't touch them, but I know there are still guys out there that swear by them.
Right on. So it's adapt or die. Obviously, with lead perhaps becoming a thing of the past, we do have to adapt and find a solution. And I know, Brad, you've been working on that. Is there any other things that you see, especially with what's going on in the world, that folks that may be getting into or an established tackle producer now, they might need to think about going forward?
Well, obviously the big thing is where your raw materials are coming from.
Yeah.
It's it's a little bit of a double whammy with anything coming out of the U.S. right now, because if it's being imported in from another country, then they're paying a tariff on it when it comes into the U.S. And then in some cases, we'll pay a tariff on it coming into Canada. Like a lot of our stuff is still not tariff. But the one that I noticed recently was the wires that we use for spinners and stuff like that. The wires imported from wherever, it might even be coming from Canada for all I know. But the manufacturer down in the U.S. is paying a tariff on it to get it to his plant. And then he's turning it into a product, and it's tariffed on the way back because it's a steel product, and steel products coming into Canada are tariffed. So a wire form that was probably costing us 10, 11 cents 3 years ago is, could even be 30 cents now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know all of the tackle manufacturers up here are really struggling, but we're trying to keep from having any major price increases. But I don't know how long we can go on like this without there being something.
Yeah, no, true enough.
So but there's never been a better time.
No, this is the thing. This is the thing. Absolutely. With the kind
COVID
of support
hangover with political strife all added into one thing.
Yeah,
we kind of seen a nightmare coming. It became a lot worse than we thought it was going to be. But we're it's not necessarily just a Canadian plight. You hear that our friends in the States are complaining about the same thing, and it's had a very global effect. So there's going to be a tipping point, and so when you get to cost of tournaments fishing. Yes, it was gasoline and bait and accommodations, but then you start factoring how much you spend on your equipment too. It really plays a toll.
Oh, and I mean, this is my belief, but I believe that all of our major distributors out there are doing their best not to increase the prices too much.
Yeah,
and I think it's the tournaments and that are suffering for it, because it's getting a lot harder to get the big manufacturers to sponsor a tournament and stuff like that. And I think that's all like this is all a part of it. Like how does a distributor justify a 25% increase in a year?
100%.
And all sponsorships the same. I mean, there's a give and take. We're willing to give you this to help. This is kind of like paying for promotion. So we understand that at the end of the day, we're going to do our best job and help out as much as we can. But you kind of, it's hard to justify spending $30 for this or $50 for that or $10 for this, and it does add up. I think though bigger corporations are starting to see that already as well. I mean, they hire a lot of smart people to try and curb these effects. And I'm hoping that 2026 we'll start to see a plateau more than anything, not necessarily a decline, but kind of a leveling out.
I think for the most part, all we need is some answers.
Exactly. That's your leveling.
Some direct answers and certainty. It's getting very difficult to guess what's going to happen, and it's the uncertainty that's killing us right now.
Yeah,
and especially when you talk about forward-facing sonar. Like, I mean, Garmin has. I mean, I know you use the Lowrance unit, Danny, and they certainly sponsor as well. But Garmin has really put back, in a huge way. And you talk about uncertainty, Brad. Look, I mean, you've got tournaments that are wondering if they're even going to have this going forward. And this is a huge part of their breadbasket is this live scope and the amount of money and research that they put into this. The fact that to find out that now going forward, it might not even be a thing. It might not even be allowed in certain tournaments. So, this is certainly things that have to be considered.
And I think it'll hurt them a little bit if it gets removed from tournaments. But I think it's so entrenched now in the private, like the non-tournament industry, just in the recreational fishery now, that it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
We're seeing it. This is 10 years ago when you started seeing side imaging and down scan and all that kind of stuff. And it's one of those things. It's easy to complain about when you don't have it, but like you say, now you look, just about everybody has it now. People aren't even buying kickers anymore for their boat because they want to have forward-facing sonar instead. The cost is the same. So you're seeing that transition. You're seeing less trolling.
One of the things we were talking about at Camp McIntosh, and I'd actually be interested to see what your take is on it, Danny. If you had to decide between your trolling motor with spot lock or forward-facing sonar, which would you give up?
Ooh, you need both.
If you had to give one up, which would you give up?
That depends. That's a very interesting, because I'm trying to dictate where I'm fishing, and where I'm fishing requires certain. Like, I can live without forward-facing sonar in certain systems, or not, but I can't live without spot lock. Whereas vice versa in other situations, it's not really a black and white answer, because you don't have both. You know, like we were fishing at the NCAA and Matagami for that. We fished a hurricane. And without my trolling motor being functioning the way it was, I didn't stand a chance. It didn't matter how good my sonar was. But if it wasn't for my sonar, I wouldn't be on those fish. So you tend to have that. And that's the thing too. We start fishing in different situations that we would never fish in the past. You have all those kind of things, right? The technology, like, pretty well everybody at the event had forward-facing sonar. I never really liked that separation between non-forward and forward. I like more the approach of amateur and pro. I know so many people that have it and have no idea what they're looking at. They have it, they bought it, but they don't understand it. And you try and teach people, like Tom Wynn has a beautiful. They think they call it Tom Wynn University or something. He's fantastic at it. And a lot of the things that how I learned is just taking those sacrifices and plopping yourself in a location loaded with walleye at the extreme peak of the bite when everybody's bottom bouncing, and saying, nope, I'm going to just learn how to work this unit. I want to understand how fish move, how they react to baits, how they look to baits. Yeah, I probably got 10 walleye where the other guy got 100, but I learned enormous amounts. So then when I got tough, I understand how to use it.
So the consensus up at camp was that almost unanimously was that guys would rather have the spot lock than the forward-facing sonar.
Yeah,
and that tells me that that's something that has as much or more impact on the way we fish and people's outcome as forward-facing sonar does.
Yeah.
Based on my skill set, I would sacrifice spot lock before forward-facing.
Wow. Based
on my skill set, I know in 4-foot waves I can keep myself on a fish with my foot pedal alone and not have to look at what I'm doing. But I'm talking as a tournament angler, not as a recreational angler. As a recreational angler, I would park myself. We call them wolf packs, because you figure out, if I'm on this structure, they love that 18-foot mark. Put myself somewhere on 18 feet, they will be here. I'm just intersecting. Then I don't need forward-facing. I can rely on my old technology. I've caught 15-pound walleye doing exactly that. But we laughed when we were in Long Lock. Actually, we had a discussion, Mary Lisa and I, and as well with Denis Martin, and we all joked about it. He's like, I don't bottom bounce somewhere else. And I'm like, we tried bottom bouncing because we were chasing big fish on these plateaus. So Mary Lisa, well, I must just bottom bounce. We're perfect speed. So she did. She never caught one fish. Then we started realizing, well, we're not in. Formerly, we would scout an area, go in 2D sonar, you mark, hey, we got waypoints every time we mark fish. We mark a line, we'd bottom bounce a line. We were in a lot of fish. They may not be the big fish. When you're targeting a 28-pound walleye only, you're looking for one fish in that area. So bottom bouncing is in dead water. All of a sudden, you're looking for that one specific bite. So we had that discussion up there. We said, we've completely changed. Where all of a sudden, bottom bouncing wasn't useless to us, and we thought it would be. And you kind of chuckle about it, right? So.
Well, I will have to say too, it has a lot to do with what you're used to, and I can speak about spot lock, and it's only because I've used it. I haven't used a lot of live scope, so it's easy for me to say, you know what, I could do without that. But if you think about it, and we had heard it at McIntosh, I would say, Brad, 90% of the folks we asked said, I could do without forward-facing sonar. You can't take my spot lock or my trolling motor away from me.
I'm also a guy very comfortable sending 100-yard cast at a walleye.
Yeah.
Very comfortable doing it. I'll send a 3/8 jig, quarter-ounce jig, 100 yards out, 100 feet out. If I can see it, I'm going to cast at it. So if the wind is going to fight me off, and we had that in situations like we had in Spanish, where we were dealing with 20-kilometer winds, or long lac, or metogamy, we were 40-kilometer winds. It's like duck hunting. We had the fish heavy in long lac. We were fishing, all the way up to 3/4 ounce jigs, pitching them out 80 feet. You're leading. You're trying to anticipate that movement of that fish like a duck, and you're saying, well, not only do I got to fight the wind, I also got to anticipate the weight of that jig dropping through the water to get down 25 feet, and I have to make sure that this fish sees it. If I bonk him on the head, he'll scatter. But if I get in front of it just right, and you can tell the body language changes. So you'll be fishing that wind. You'll spend 50 minutes, spend 8-9 casts of that one fish just to get that one chance. And 9 times out of 10, if you get that situation where, if your rod weight's not heavy enough, your line's not light enough, your jig's not heavy, you miss the bite because you had so much wind bound. So my trolling motor did nothing for me at that point when you look at that. But my forward-facing sonar gave me that opportunity. Those are the way I look at it. But I'm like I said, I'm looking at it from a tournament angler's perspective, not from a recreation standpoint. From a recreation standpoint, I'm not fishing in 5-foot waves in 40-kilometer winds and gale force winds. So there's that aspect. I'm going home and I'm going to sit in the hot tub.
No, it's just for me. It was eye opening because I always thought spot lock, or I always thought that forward facing sonar was a big change in the technology. But there's a lot of things like I've had my eyes open talking to other people, and when you see things like spot lock and that, you start to see that there's been lots of major changes, right? And I mean the changes in sonar in general. Like I watch the salmon guys out there able to scout the water for salmon at 45, 50 mile an hour. Yeah. That's not something that they've been able to do for more than probably 5 or 6 years.
And that's just the advancement technology. And all we had HD 3-in-1 transducers that, it's amazing what we can see. I was telling Scottie earlier, I'm not going to repeat it on air, but I have a very interesting scouting mission this weekend that I'm actually very excited to go try. And that's the sole reason that I got asked is because of forward-facing sonar. So I'm excited to do that. But that back to the trolling motor aspect, when it's nice outside, when it's less than 10 kilometers of wind, I never touch spot lock once. Even if I'm fighting a fish, there's no wind, the boat just keeps going. I'm letting it do what it's want. I don't need it. So I just rely on fighting what I'm doing. And in fact, I prefer, like salmon fishing, I prefer that forward momentum because it kind of helps control the fish to keep them in, whether in the back corner of the boat or wherever I want them to be. It's like, when we fight in a salmon, you never put the boat in neutral. You may slow down, but you still want that drag. I know if you ask anybody at tournament fishes, they'll give up spot lock before they do favorite sourcing. That's for sure.
Interesting. That's really interesting. Well, as I said, gentlemen, it is the end of our hour. It comes quickly. Any last questions that you have, Brad? Or
I just one quick thing to say. This kind of goes back to James Shembry's last little question there. For anybody that is watching, I will be releasing most of the information within the next 3 or 4 days. I'm just working on getting the website. The Facebook events are already up. We've already got people responding to them. And I'm working on getting the websites updated now. It's about 40 or 50 hours of computer time to get it done. So once it's done, everything will be up, and we'll be starting to take bookings from vendors next week.
Cool.
So keep an eye out for it. If you're a vendor and you're not a part of our vendor support group, get a hold of me and let's make that happen for you.
Amen. Any last words from you, Dan?
I love how he says vendor support group. It sounds like a crisis support group. I just love the way it rings off his town.
Sometimes it feels like a crisis support
group. Sometimes, yeah, 100%.
I do personally, I want to extend my thanks to Brad and the Made in Canada Tackle Show for coming up and willing to come back again, and everybody that came up. So I definitely want to express that. And of course, Scottie, who wears multiple hats in this year. We couldn't have done without him. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, it was an awful lot of fun. It's only going to grow. We'd like to turn it into a festival type atmosphere where you're going to have food trucks and maybe a live band and a whole bunch of other things that will come in the future. It might not come right away, but as we grow, we will influx interesting ideas, interesting concepts, so that at the end of the weekend, it was a whole lot of fun. And that I will say this: that weekend up in Spanish was an awful lot of work, but it was an awful lot of fun.
Yeah, I love how we document this here. So 5 years from now, we can look back whether this was success or failure or whatever. We can go back to kind of the beginning when me and Scottie look a way younger and a lot less stressed, and where we ended up. And I'm curious to go back and see what that's going to look like.
Well, I'm afraid if I start looking any older, I'm going to be over the hill soon. I won't be able to do any of this. I'll be in a rest home at some point. But yeah, no, absolutely. And Brad, thanks so much for coming on tonight and supporting the Canadian tackle producers like you always do, answering questions, offering advice, and giving opportunities for them to save a few dollars. And Danny, as I said, as we recap what was a very successful event up in Spanish due to a number of hands that were helping out and supporting in their own way. Again, right now, as I said, sky's the limit, man. Like I'm so pumped to get going for next year, whether it be the shows or the tournament, because there's just so much cool stuff going on. I love it.
Yeah, I'm kind of speechless with that. We got so many things on the burner right now. I mean,
100%.
Yeah, holy shit, we did it. So we're gonna move
on. That's the best way to say it. So on that note, thanks for everybody who joined us. Thanks, Sean, for all of your comments. And of course, Richard, you shared the link to Stallion Express, which is a great source for folks that are looking to save some money on shipping. If you have any other questions, any other concerns, or just want some good old-fashioned advice, by all means, reach out to Brad, myself, or Dan, and we'll do what we can to, if we don't know the answer, hopefully we know somebody that does. But on that note, that is the end of our Power Hour. We're going to be back again next week, and I do believe we have a guest lined up, Dan.
We do. We have Mr. Matt Koprash coming in next week, so I'm excited to talk to Matt and see what he has to say. I know he's got a big tournament here. I think he's going there now, or he might be getting ready to go down in the States, in South Carolina or North Carolina or something like that. So I should touch base on that.
Cool stuff. Right on. Well, we'll see you next week right here on the Power Hour at 8 o'clock. And until then, have yourselves a great week and get out and enjoy that incredible weather this weekend. Oh, my word. You talk about Indian summer. My word, is it going to be gorgeous this weekend. So get out, wet a line, and hook a fish, make some memories, and have fun. Till then, stay in your tech. Yeah. Until then, we will all see you later. Peace.